Hello everyone, my name is Ritesh Pandey, and in this video we'll take up a very important portion of chemical bonding which is studied under Fajans rule. Now Fajans rule are a set of rules which will decide or govern anionic or covalent nature of various bonds in different compounds and thereby explain its chemical properties. Now before we go into the set of Fajans rules, let's very quickly have a small briefing on the two type of bonding which is taught to you. The two fundamental type of chemical bonds which we are told is either an ionic bond or a covalent bond. And the ionic bond and covalent bond are radically different. In the sense, I have written a few statements here. You will want to read for an ideal covalent bond which is supposed to be sharing of electrons. So we are told that this pair of electrons is shared between two nuclei X and Y. And what will be ideal covalency? What will be ideal sharing of electrons? An ideal sharing of electrons would mean that the electron density should be exactly between the nuclei of X and Y, and there should be no charge development. I repeat, if it's an ideal covalent bond, that means the electron density should be exactly between the two nuclei. It should be symmetrically placed between the two nuclei, and there should be no positive, no negative. So an ideal covalent bond, there should be no dipole, no polarity. That is never the case. If suppose this is how I represent a covalent bond and Y happens to be more electronegative. If Y is more electronegative, electronegativity is a natural, universal tendency. Different elements will have different tendencies to attract a pair of electrons. And if Y is more electronegative, it will polarize the electron towards itself. And this is how it's represented. The dipole is represented by arrows, pointing towards the more electronegative element. And if Y happens to be more electronegative, there will be delta negative, delta plus charges. It is also represented in this manner. What should have been ideally between X and Y is kind of polarized towards Y. It's polarized towards Y. So you would see this is kind of bulged towards Y. It's tapering towards X. I repeat, between X and Y, if Y happens to be more electronegative, this bond is going to be polarized. And delta negative, delta positive, because these are partial charges, not actual charges. Actual positive, actual negative would be by complete gain or loss of electrons. Now this is how it's represented in a bond. This is how it could be represented by the bond getting or the electron density getting polarized towards Y. And because Y is more electronegative, there is some negative positive charge development. It's not an ideal covalent bond. There will be some dipole, and that dipole, that charge development or polarity is due to difference in electronegativity. All covalent bonds will have some positive negative charge on either of the nuclei, even if it's homoatomic. You'll be surprised to know, even if it's homoatomic, both hydrogen, the simplest covalent bond, even in hydrogen, because of several factors, there will be some charge development, and any kind of charge development, any kind of polarity means it's not 100% covalent. Next, when we take up ionic bond. Now ionic bond, I have told you a little bit about the nature of ionic solids. I do tell you, ionic bond is not about sharing electrons. Cation and anion are attracted by electrostatic force of attraction. I have told you about cation surrounded by several anion, anions are surrounded by several cation. Basically an ionic compound is a cluster, an array of particles. So because there is no sharing of electrons, conventionally a bond is about a bond pair which is between X and Y. And remember all the discussions we have had so far, be it hybridization, VSEPR, bond pair, lone pair. We have drawn various bonds because there has been common electrons between the nuclei. In ionic bond, cation is stable, anion is stable. There is no sharing of electrons. They are attracted by the electrostatic positive negative attraction. So what I do is, I choose to make them two spheres. Generally the anion is bigger, cation is smaller. And here, assuming a positive and a negative spheres are in contact, naturally only at the point of contact, the charges will be dissolved, and there should be a very defined positive end and a very defined negative end. So with ideal ionic bond, I believe there should be very high dipole. So to begin with, the difference between covalency and ionic nature could be defined in terms of the charges developed, where ideally in covalent bond there should be no charge development, and in anionic bond there should be absolutely defined positive and negative end. The charge dissolution is only going to be at the point of contact. An anionic bond will have a defined positive end, a defined negative end. Ideal anionic bond means high dipole moment. Now, it's a very common statement. It's a very common statement. No bond is 100% anionic. No bond is 100% covalent. No bond is 100% anionic. No bond is 100% covalent, because in 100% covalency there should be no dipole, no charge development. There is charge development because of difference in electronegativity. In this topic, we'll see covalency developing in anionic compounds. Realize, because of difference in electronegativity, I repeat, because of difference in electronegativity, because of positive negative charge development, because of some dipole, because of difference in electronegativity, you can say charge development dipole is like anionic character developing in a covalent bond. So this is like anionic nature developing in covalent bond, and in Fajans rule we will be talking about covalency developing in anionic compounds. So before we begin the discussions on Fajans rule, it's very important that you know it's about covalency in anionic bonds and not the other way around. I repeat, because of difference in electronegativity, charge development and polarity could be taken as anionic character developing in covalent bond. What we do in Fajans rules is how covalency develops in anionic bonds. So in Fajans rule, we'll be primarily talking about anionic compounds, and we'll see covalency developing in anionic compounds would kind of prove that even no bond is 100% anionic. In due course, we start talking about percentage anionic character. We start talking about percentage covalent character. I did tell you that covalency and anionic nature are like radically different in the sense, in one you will want no charge development, in one you will want absolutely defined charge development and polarity. So we start talking about percentage anionic nature, percentage covalency, because you know no bond is 100% anionic or 100% covalent, and one way to get that is the percent anionic character is generally defined or calculated as the experimental dipole upon expected dipole. This expected dipole would be mathematically Q into D, the charge expected multiplied by the distance between the nuclei. So this will be theoretically obtained as some value in dBi. You know the unit is dBi. And when this is experimentally obtained, naturally, if the two are equal, if the bond has the same dipole as expected, you could say it's 100% anionic. But that never happens. Experimental value will be lesser than expected value, and this ratio into 100 would give me percentage anionic character. So we wanted a little bit of briefing of this kind for you to understand that in anionic compounds there could be covalency creeping in. In covalent molecules there could be charge development and anionic nature coming in. What we do in Fajans rule is covalency in anionic compounds. So here we talk about covalency developing in anionic compounds and not the other way. Here the factor was difference of electronegativity. Here we are going to talk about some phenomena, you know, which will bring covalency into anionic compounds. So maybe I'll want to give you a bigger view of this particular arrangement. And then Fajans rule will take over. So allow me to, rub all of this. You'll want to copy this at your convenience. And I repeat, we'll want to take up covalency in anionic bonds. We are talking about anionic compounds now. Now yet again, if it's a cation and an anion attracted by electrostatic force of attraction, assuming the cation is generally smaller and the anion is bigger, the positive cation can influence the outer electrons of the anion. The positive cation can influence the outer electrons of the anion and would, by attracting this electron density towards itself, start or trigger something which is called polarization. This is called polarization. Now this is polarization in anionic compounds. This is polarization in anionic compounds or anionic bonds. I repeat, the cation, if it attracts the outermost electron density of over the anion, this flow of electron density from anion to cation is called polarization. If suppose there is a flow of electron density from anion to cation, don't you think anion will become less negative because electron is coming from anion over cation? And naturally, because of this flow of electron density towards cation, because of polarization, cation will become less positive, and this is what I was talking about. Because of this polarization, because the cation attracting the outermost electron density of the anion, because of this phenomena called polarization, electron density moving from anion to cation, anion will become less negative, cation will become less positive, and you can see this is like dissolution of charges, this is like dilution of charges. You know, anion becoming less negative, cation becoming less positive is about dilution of charges, and dilution of charges will naturally lead to lower dipole. This will naturally lead to lower dipole, and there will be a decrease in dipole, and this is where the experimental mu would be less than the expected mu. Because of this polarization, negative will become less negative, positive will become less positive. This charge dispersal will be diluted, positive becoming less positive, negative becoming less negative, which will mean the charges are getting diluted, and naturally experimental dipole will be less than the expected value. So I repeat, in the previous case, I'll just very quickly repeat one more time. In the previous case where you had dipole developed in a covalent bond or charges developed in a covalent bond, that was about covalency developing in ionic nature developing in covalent compounds. Here, because of this phenomena, the charges are getting diluted, and you can say this is covalency developing in ionic compounds. Now naturally, the set of rules which will govern the extent of polarization has to be very fundamentally understood, and this polarization will certainly depend upon two factors. It will depend upon what's called polarizing power of the cation, and polarizability of the anion. Polarizability of anion. Naturally, polarizing power will mean how good the cation is polarizing the electron density. Polarizing power of cation is about how effectively, how good the cation is at polarization. And polarizability means how easily the anion gives in, how easily the anion surrenders or accepts, allows this polarization. So naturally, for more covalency, for more polarization, you will want the cation to have more polarizing power, and you will want the anion to be easily polarized. I repeat, a cation which is more polarizing or an anion which easily polarizes would mean polarization would be more, covalency would be more in a given ionic bond or an ionic compound. Now we'll talk about the rules. We'll also want to know the rules in a proper sequence. So we'll want to follow the sequence which I am telling you. Various textbooks, various sources, have the rules and the sequence pretty scrambled. You'll want to always follow the sequence which I am telling you, because this will help you in problem solving. First of all, you'll want to see the charge of the cation or anion. You'll want to see the charge over the cation or anion. Any day, if charge is more, then polarization is more. If charge is more, then polarization is more, and more polarization will mean there is more covalency. See, how do I explain it? Very fundamentally. If the cation is more positive, naturally it can attract better. If the cation is more positive, it can attract better. Ferric better than ferrous. More positive cation will attract better. More negative anion. If the charge of the anion is more negative anion means there is more electron density to donate or to get polarized. So naturally, if the cation is more positive or if the anion is more negative, a more positive cation can polarize better. A more negative anion can easily donate more electron density. It will be more generous, and more the charge, more is the polarization, more is the covalency. We'll very quickly take up a few examples. If I tell you about NaCl, if I tell you about MgCl2, if I tell you about AlCl3, so this is Na+1, Mg +2, Al +3, and more the charge, more is the covalency. More the charge, more is the covalency. We'll say this is the order of covalency. This is the order of covalency. AlCl3 more covalent than MgCl2, which is more covalent than NaCl. I can add one more to the list. I can talk about, suppose, silicon tetrachloride, SiCl4, which is silicon +4. So +4 would be even more covalent. Now, along with covalency, there are more characters which we can associate it with these compounds. For that, we'll have to learn some ionic traits. We'll want to know some typical ionic behavior. Again, allow me to rub this. And some popular ionic traits are, some ionic characters are, first and foremost, high melting point, high thermal stability, high solubility in polar solvents, high conductivity in solutions. High conductivity, we'll learn conductivity in due course, etc., etc., etc. These are the common points. Now we know ionic bond is stronger than covalent bond. We all know ionic bond is stronger than covalent bond. So naturally, if there is more ionic nature, we know ionic bond is much stronger than a covalent bond. Because ionic bond is much more stronger than a covalent bond, with more ionic nature, the bond will be stronger, the compound will be thermally stable with higher melting point. So naturally, you will find more ionic compounds, more ionic nature, and they're going to be solids almost every time. Like dissolves like. We talk about solubility. I have done a little bit of hydrogen bonding with you. Like dissolves like. A polar solvent is better at dissolving more polar solute. So if there is more dipole, if there is more charge development, more polar solute would easily go into a polar solvent, and the best polar solvent, universal polar solvent, is water. So generally by solubility we'll define solubility in water. So more ionic nature would mean more solubility in water. And then because it's going to freely ionize and dissolve in water, the conductivity, the charge carried in presence of an electric field will be more. So more ionic character would also cause higher conductivity. So I repeat, with more ionic character, if we expect higher melting point and stability, if we expect more solubility in water and conductivity, naturally if this is the order of covalency, right away I can claim this is the order of ionic nature, this is the order of ionic nature, or this is the order of melting point. This is the order of melting point. We'll see when it comes to stability. Certainly when it comes to solubility, more factors would play their role. So solubility to a very large extent, stability in a few cases will be governed by few more rules and aspects, but melting point right away would depend upon ionic nature. If this is the order of covalency for melting point, every time I could be pretty sure if this is the order of covalency, the reverse will be the order of ionic nature, and more ionic means higher melting point. So the reverse of the order of covalency will be the order of melting point. More the charge, more is covalency, and the reverse is the order of melting point. Now this will be true for even cations having variable valencies. So you talk about SnCl2 and SnCl4. Now this is more covalent. You talk about PbCl2 and PbCl4. Now PbCl4 is more covalent because this is +4, stannous plumbus +2. You would know SnCl2 is an ionic solid, it's an ionic solid, and SnCl4 is a liquid, it's a liquid. Now naturally something is a liquid or something is a solid if the melting point is more than the room temperature. So if SnCl4 is more covalent, PbCl4 is more covalent, the lower oxidation state is more ionic and has higher melting point. This is naturally the order of covalency, this is the order of covalency, and the reverse will be the order of ionic nature. So this is rule 1. More the charge, more polarization, more covalency. We'll talk about rule 2 now. Now while talking about rule 2, we'll believe rule 1 has been taken care of. While talking about rule 2, we'll believe that rule 1 has been taken care of. So now we'll talk about same charge. Now the second rule is size of cation should be small. If the size of the cation is small, then there is more polarization. A smaller cation will cause more polarization. Naturally, this will mean more covalency. And again, this could be very fundamentally understood. Smaller the cation, closer will be its nuclei to the anionic electron density. Any day, a smaller cation, first of all, let's populate a set. If it is lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, or if it is beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium. So this is group 1, all plus 1. This is group 2, all plus 2. So rule 1 has been taken care of. Charges are equal. A smaller cation is more polarizing. I repeat, a smaller cation will mean the nuclei is closer to the anion electron density. Or you could also say a smaller cation would mean with the same charge, the smaller cation will have more charge density. So either you could say a smaller cation will be closer to the electron density, a smaller cation will be kind of more intruding, more penetrating. A smaller cation, obviously charge is equal, a smaller cation will be more penetrating, will be more intruding, will have its nuclei closer to the electron density, or you can say a smaller cation with the same charge will have more charge density. And naturally with more polarization, down the group size increases. This will be the order of covalency. Naturally, randomly I can take a few compounds. If this is the order of covalency, the reverse is the order of ionic nature. Naturally, the reverse is the order of ionic nature. If this is the order of covalency, the reverse will be the order of ionic nature. The reverse will be the order of melting point. I repeat, down the group size increases. The smallest are lithium and beryllium. No wonder maximum lithium beryllium compounds will show maximum covalency. You will find so many lithium compounds thermally unstable. You will find so many lithium beryllium compounds. Thermally less stable, unstable, and precipitates. Solubility in water is an ionic trait, very small in the respective groups, smaller cation, more polarizing, more covalent. Ionic nature is solubility. Lithium beryllium compounds are going to be thermally less stable, will have lesser melting point. LiCl will be even lesser. And would be generally precipitates because solubility is an ionic behavior. So this is about rule 2. We'll talk about rule 3, which will be about the size of the anion. So while talking about the cation, we have kept the anion the same. Similarly, while talking about the anion, we would want the cation to be the same. We generally take halides as the examples because halides behave very uniformly, in different compounds. Halides are going to be ideally following these set of rules. There will be a few exceptions here and there, but you will want to know the general case first. The number of exceptions in different exams, the count is very low. Unnecessarily, people go about, learning a lot of exceptions, but maximum questions come from the fundamentals, from the general set of rules. We need to be very particular and, very good at those first. So rule 3 would be about size of the anion. Size of anion should be large, and then you will have more polarizability. And more polarizability will again mean more covalency. Yet again, we can explain it very fundamentally. A small cation was more intruding. Similarly, a large anion is easier to steal from. A large anion, if the size of the anion is big, this means the outermost electron density of the anion is further away from its nuclei. Yes or no? If the anion is big, this means its outer electrons are away from its own nuclei and can be easily polarized. So a small cation is better at penetrating, stealing. A big anion is easier to polarize, and naturally, if the size of an anion is large, a bigger anion, more polarizability, more easily, readily polarized, and more is the covalency. So now we can talk about sodium fluoride, sodium chloride, sodium bromide, sodium iodide. We can talk about group 2, calcium fluoride, calcium chloride, calcium bromide, calcium iodide. A very popular example is involving aluminium compounds. So we can take up aluminium chloride, aluminium bromide, aluminium iodide. Silver chloride, silver bromide, silver iodide, and this would be the order of covalency. Down the group, size increases, iodide bigger than bromide, bigger than chloride, bigger than fluoride. I repeat, a bigger anion is easier to polarize. This would be the order of covalency. And naturally, if this is the order of covalency, now you can say fluoride more than chloride more than bromide more than iodide, or even for the calcium salt. Remember, that is the order of covalency. All this is the order of covalency. So the reverse is the order of ionic nature. A larger anion, down the group, size increases, more polarizable, more covalent. This naturally is the order of ionic nature, and this will be the order of melting point for all these set of compounds. So there should be more charge, cation should be small, and anion should be large for more covalency. Now the fourth and the last rule would be about two cations which cannot be discriminated, either one on charge or two on size. So rule 4 is going to talk about two cations having very comparable sizes and comparable charges, or equal charges, Before that, you will want to copy this, and we'll take up the fourth and the last rule, Fajans rule, which will be, I repeat, about two cations which are having, say, equal charge and very comparable sizes. So rule 4, and I introduce a few terms. Rule 4 would tell you that pseudo inert gas configuration of a cation will be more covalent than an inert gas configuration. And right away, I would take the example of Cu plus Na plus. Suppose I can take the example of zinc plus 2, Mg plus 2. I think Na plus Mg plus 2 is understood. Na plus Mg plus 2 would naturally have a configuration 2p6, 2s2, 2p6. Sorry, 3s2, 3p6. So Na plus Mg plus 2 will have a configuration 2s2, 2p6 like helium neon, So one valence electron go on for sodium, two valence electron go on for magnesium. Group 1 plus 1, group 2 plus 2 will have what's called an inert gas configuration. It's called an inert gas configuration. In this case, it's about neon. The copper and zinc, you should remember, copper has a configuration like 4s2, 3d10, 4s1, 3d10. Zinc has a configuration like 4s2, 3d10. Now when copper loses an electron, Cu plus, which is the s electron, or zinc loses 2 electrons, which is 4s2. Now Cu plus will have a configuration like 3s2, 3p6, 3d10. Zinc will have a configuration like 3s2, 3p6, 3d10. So both Cu plus and zinc plus 2 will have a configuration like 3s2, 3p6, 3d10. Now this is the difference. A configuration like ns2 np6 is inert gas configuration, and a configuration like ns2 np6 nd10 is a pseudo inert gas configuration. You know, the properties are a little similar sometimes. Sometimes the properties are similar. And if you remember, this was the reason it was like group A and it was like group B in the old periodic table, which was based on atomic weight. So this was in group 1A, this was in 1B, this was in 2A, this was in 2B. Because both copper and I can write for sodium, you know, sodium would be 3s1 after 2s2, 2p6. Magnesium would be 3s2. So because of similar number of valence electrons, you know, in the old periodic table you had group A taking care of the s block and p block elements. You know, these are the d block elements. I'll quickly want to give you a glimpse of their positions in the periodic table. I'll want to give you a glimpse of their position in the periodic table. So by now, I know this much of periodic table is known by all of you. You have hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, magnesium here, calcium here, scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc. So this is like the third period, this is like the fourth period, 4s1, 4s2, then 3d1, 3d2, 3d3, finally 3d9, 3d10, 3d10, 4s1, 3d10, 4s2, 3d10, because full filled is more stable, you know that. Now when you compare sodium and copper, first of all, both have say charges equal. You move down, listen carefully, you move down, size increases, you move down, size increases, you move left to right, size decreases. We know this from periodic properties. Moving down, size increases, moving left to right, size decreases. Compare magnesium with zinc. Yet again the same phenomena. Moving down, size increases, left to right, size decreases. So when you are comparing sodium and copper, both have equal charge. So rule 1 is taken care of. And because of this positioning, down the group size increases, left to right size decreases, they'll have comparable radii as well. Same could be said for magnesium as well as zinc. They have equal charges. Moving down, size increases, left to right size decreases. So the two have equal charge and comparable radii as well. So you know, rule 1, 2, 3 is not going to help here. And we have this discrimination. ns2np6 is the real true inert gas configuration. Pseudo means false. This has a false inert gas configuration. We have learnt a few things in periodic table. If you remember, I talk about screening effect. I talk about poor screening effect of d electrons. I talk about how moving down, eventually the increase in radii is not very effective. Down the group size increases, generally in a group. But we talk about screening effect, we talk about increased nuclear charge. We see down the group the increase in radii decreases. The increase in radii decreases. The difference between the radii is lesser moving down the group. So we have learnt a lot about screening effect, rather, you know, in periodic table I tell you about a screening effect. We know about factors controlling the size of the different elements and all. So naturally, when the charges are equal, the sizes are comparable, let's not forget this has much higher atomic number. This is 11, this is 29, this is 12, this is 30. So first and foremost, they have a lot of protonic charge, much more protons, much more positive nuclei. The protonic charge is much more, and D is not good at screening. D does not have good screening effect. So although eventually the charges and sizes are comparable, because of poor screening effect, or you can say more increased protonic charge, eventually they are found to be more covalent. Because the nucleus is more positive, the screening effect is poor. The nucleus positive charge can attract the anion, the counterpart, the counter ion more effectively. I repeat, a cation anion, if this is more positive and there is little screening of its own electrons, then obviously it's better at polarizing. So I've never wanted you to mug up anything. There is a very fundamental logic to all the 4 rules which you see in Fajans rule. So each and every rule has to be very fundamentally understood, and eventually when charge and radii are comparable, because of more protonic charge, more positive nuclei, which is poorly screened, which means the positive influence is more, and naturally more positive influence can polarize better. And that would mean a compound like CuCl and NaCl, CuCl will be more covalent. A compound like ZnCl2 and MgCl2, ZnCl2 will be more covalent. Pseudo-inert gas configuration will be more covalent. Pseudo-inert gas configuration will be more covalent, and naturally these two will have higher melting point. Naturally, you know, the order which I am writing here is for covalency. This is the order for covalency, and NaCl, MgCl2 being more ionic will have higher melting point. Zinc, cadmium, mercury, copper, silver, gold. I do tell you, in due course, it's absolutely imperative you know the position of all elements in the periodic table. So coinage metals, 1b in the old periodic table, zinc, cadmium, mercury. Volatile metals in the 2b in the old periodic table, it's group 11, group 12 now. What comes to mind is a small anomaly. Zinc, cadmium and mercury, ZnCl2, CdCl2, HgCl2, down the group size increases, down the group size increases, and down the group there should be less covalent. You know, down the group size increases, the cations would be smaller. So ideally this would be most covalent. I repeat, down the group size increases, you want the cation to be smaller. So ideally this would be the order of covalency. Ideally this would be the order of covalency. This is expected. But eventually this is the observed covalency. So this is expected. This is actual order of covalency. Because I was talking about this particular group, zinc and copper, you know, I just felt like sharing this with you. That zinc, cadmium, mercury, यहाँ पर down the group size increases, but covalency also increases. You will find ZnCl2 to be fairly soluble, HgCl2 less soluble, will ionize lesser. With more covalency, there are more properties, physical properties, chemical properties affected, and you will find Fajans rule relevant not only in chemical bonding in this particular topic. You will find the concept of polarization, polarizing power, polarizability, helping you in different topics of inorganic chemistry in future. But all of this will take care of different questions which come at your level in various engineering, medical entrance exams. You know, after this discussion, even if you try to solve all the questions which have come in a JEE mains or advanced, I think you'll be able to go past it with complete ease. Let me know if there are questions, if there are doubts. I'll be more than happy, you know, to clear your doubts and your queries. You'll want to read a textbook for sure. You'll want to solve more questions based on these. There could be a number of statements, you know. I remember oxides, sulfides. They'll tell you sulfides are more covalent than oxides, naturally, because sulfur is a bigger anion. So I'm not willingly writing a lot of questions here. This was supposed to be a theory session. So these ideas, if understood very fundamentally, will help you in solving all the questions. Will naturally solve more questions in the classroom hours. This much for today. Let me know if there are questions and doubts. Thank you so much.